So we had deduction, which is general to the specific inferential pattern, and that actually does confer certainty if, in fact, the premises are true and the inference pattern is valid. We had induction, which was the inference from specific instances to a general rule, which obviously may not hold. The only thing you can do is sort of say, well, it's held so far, we expect that it will hold in the future. And then, of course, there's abduction, which is also called inference to the best explanation. And abduction is sort of a way of collecting together all of the relevant specifics and asking, well, how can all these apparently contrary facts coexist? What would the world need to be like to contain all of this? And sort of what are the conditions of possibility that we feel forced to countenance in order to make sense of that these are the facts, essentially.
Yes, interesting. So you have a good example of something simple that you can explain abduction?
Sure, yeah. Actually, this is an example that comes from a debate I was listening to yesterday from the Nameless Debates tournament. Froggy was talking about, it was a bad analogy in the context of the debate, but it's a good example here, how we determine, first of all, that there are planets in other solar systems, and second of all, what their characteristics and properties are. And the way we do that is because the light from other suns, other stars, is interrupted, and so it's interrupted in a periodic manner and for a certain duration, and we can track that because the light gets dimmer, obviously, and we have quite sensitive instruments that sort of measure these variables. And so when we observe that there's a periodic to it, so it's regular and it's always the same duration, what we then sort of infer is, something must be getting in the way. That's an example of an abduction. It's not a drawing out of and it's not a drawing out of a specific conclusion from a rule. Instead, it's sort of like, well, what must be true in order to explain the data that we can observe? And in this case, we then come up with more specific sort of deductive conclusions. For example, the duration we use to calculate the size of the planet, the duration of the gap, and the periodic we use to calculate the size of the orbit of the planet. But yeah, that's I think quite a simple example.